Thank you for joining me on this extraordinary journey into one of the world's greatest epics, the Mahabharata. For centuries, this grand story has captivated hearts and minds across generations, weaving together adventure, wisdom, struggle, and triumph. It is not just an epic of ancient India, but a profound reflection on life, duty, justice, and the complexities of the human soul. Whether you are new to the Mahabharata or rediscovering its timeless stories, you'll find yourself transported to a world where gods and mortals walk together, where loyalty is tested, and where every choice shapes. As we explore the saga of the Pandavas and Kauravas, the two families locked in a monumental conflict, you'll meet unforgettable heroes, cunning villains, and divine beings, each with their own strengths and flaws. Through these Thansers chapters, we will uncover lessons, unravel mysteries, and perhaps even see echoes of our own lives. Settle in, relax, and let the tale unfold. Welcome to the world of honor, courage, and epic adventure. Welcome to the Mahabharata. In the ancient city of Hastinapura, the royal palace was abuzz with anticipation and anxiety. Two brothers, Pandu and Dhritarashtra, stood at the heart of this lineage. Fate dealt them vastly different hands. Pandu was anointed king because his elder brother Dhritarashtra was born blind. Yet Pandu's life was marked by turbulence. After an ill-fated hunt led to a curse, rendering him unable to father children, he retreated into the forest with his queens, Kunti and Madri. Desperate for heirs, Kunti invoked sacred mantras gifted by a sage, allowing her to summon gods as fathers to her children. Thus, Yudhishthira was born of Yama, the god of Dharma, Bhima from Vayu, the wind god, and Arjuna from Indra, the king of gods. Kunti shared the mantras with Madri, who bore twins, Nakula and Sahadeva, blessed by the Ashwini Kumaras, twin gods of health and beauty. Meanwhile, in Hastinapura, Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari longed for children. After intense penance, Gandhari bore a hard mass, which the sage Vyasa divided into 100 pieces, each placed in jars. In time, the jars yielded 100 sons, led by Duryodhana, and a daughter, Dushala. The births were celebrated with grand but ominous signs marred Duryodhana's arrival. Jackals howled, and the wise Vidura warned of strife to come. Even in infancy, the Pandavas and Kauravas, as they would come to be known, were subjects of hope and foreboding. The elders sensed greatness, but also a coming storm. The palace was alive with joy. Yet shadows of rivalry began to flicker. Thus, the seeds of the Mahabharata were sown in the cradle of Hastinapura. Children born of gods and royalty, destinies entwined by love, envy, duty, and fate. Little did anyone know that these babies, growing side by side in royal chambers, would one day change the world with their actions. Courage and sacked the palace of Hastinapura, once filled with lullabies, soon echoed with the playful shouts and the first quarrels of its many princes. The 5 Pandavas and the 100 Kauravas, though raised together, were destined for conflict. As children, their lives intertwined in study, games, and mischief. Yet beneath the surface, seeds of jealousy and pride took root. Yudhishthira, the eldest Pandava, grew into a boy marked by honesty and kindness. Bhima's strength was legendary even in childhood. He could uproot trees and wrestle wild animals, becoming the bane of his cousins. Duryodhana, the eldest Kaurava, resented Bhima's power and saw the Pandavas as threats to his own destiny. Young Arjuna, agile and focused, was already drawn to archery, impressing his teachers with his skill. Draughts, wrestling, and races soon became contests of supremacy. Duryodhana, often bested by Bhima, began to scheme with his brother Dushasana and cousin Karna, whose loyalty was already unshakable. The rivalry sometimes turned dark. Duryodhana once plotted to poison Bhima and drown him in the river. Fortunately, Bhima's resilience and divine intervention saved him. Amid these tensions, wise elders like Bhishma and Vidura tried to foster harmony, reminding the boys of their shared blood. Gandhari, mother to the Kauravas, and Kunti, matriarch of the Pandavas, watched with worry as competitions grew fiercer. Yet, there were moments of unity, festivals, lessons with sages, and the awe-inspiring presence of Bhishma, the grandsire, who treated all princes as his own. Still, the palace air often grew thick with resentment, and the brothers' camaraderie was as fragile as a clay lamp in the wind. The childhood days of the Pandavas and Kauravas, filled with laughter, rivalry, and secret plots, foreshadowed the epic struggle to come. The boys were growing fast, shaped by both affection and suspicion, love and rivalry, preparing for destinies that would soon demand courage beyond imagination. One day, the tranquility of Hastinapura was interrupted by the arrival of a mysterious, dignified sage, Dronacharya. His reputation as a master of warfare preceded him, and the princes gathered, eyes wide with awe. Drona's arrival was a turning point. He was tasked with transforming the playful princes into true warriors. Drona began training all the princes together, teaching archery, mace fighting, swordplay, and ancient military tactics. He was strict, demanding discipline, humility, and respect for arms. Arjuna, already gifted, dedicated himself completely to Drona's lessons. His relentless practice, even through rain and darkness, impressed his teacher, who promised to make Arjuna the greatest archer in the world. Drona's own life, however, was marked by bitterness. Once a poor Brahmin, he sought help from his childhood friend, King Draupadi, who rejected him. Nursing this wound, Drona taught the princes not only weapons, but also life's harsh lessons, loyalty, gratitude, and justice. The princes learned quickly, but rivalry simmered. Duryodhana resented Arjuna's growing favor and Karna's outsider status. Bhima and Dushasana clashed in wrestling. Drona, meanwhile, demanded the impossible from his pupils, like aiming at the eye of a moving bird, to test their focus. Arjuna alone saw only the bird's eye, earning his teacher's blessing. In gratitude, the princes captured Draupadi, Drona's old rival, restoring their teacher's honor and forging a new enmity that would later shape Draupadi's destiny. Drona's training bonded the princes, but also set the stage for future betrayals and battles. As the sun set on the palace's training ground, the princes, now skilled warriors, stood ready for the challenges ahead, their fates bound to Drona's teachings and to one another by ties of blood, ambition, and growing mistrust. The princes of Hastinapura, trained for years by Dronacharya, had grown into formidable warriors, each eager to prove his worth. The time arrived for a grand public exhibition, a tournament where the teenage princes would display their martial skills before the assembled royalty, nobles, and citizens. The great arena brimmed with excitement. At its heart sat the elders, Bhishma, Dhritarashtra, Kunti, Gandhari, Drona, and Kripa, alongside other kings and dignitaries, all waiting to witness the future defenders of the kingdom. Yudhishthira opened the contest, demonstrating mastery in spear and chariot fighting. Bhima dazzled the crowd with feats of strength, wielding his mace with effortless power. Duryodhana, not to be outdone, matched Bhima's every move, his eyes glinting with fierce rivalry. The other Kauravas and Pandavas showed their prowess, each displaying unique talents with sword, javelin, or bow. Then Arjuna, Drona's star pupil, stepped forward. His entrance alone commanded awe. With sublime focus, Arjuna performed breathtaking feats, shooting arrows in rapid succession to create a protective canopy above, hitting moving targets without error, and even demonstrating the legendary feat of piercing the eye of a revolving fish. By looking only at its reflection, the arena erupted in applause, and even his rivals could not help but be impressed. Just as Arjuna's brilliance seemed unchallenged, a striking youth, clad in armor with a radiant golden breastplate and earrings, entered the arena. This was Karna, son of a charioteer, whose regal bearing and confidence caught everyone's attention. With humility but resolve, Karna challenged Arjuna to a duel of archery. The crowd was spellbound as Karna duplicated every feat Arjuna performed, matching him shot for shot. Tension simmered as Arjuna and Karna prepared to face off, but Kripa, the royal preceptor, halted them, questioning Karna's lineage and right to challenge a prince. The debate stung Karna, yet he held his dignity. The sun dipped low, and the contest ended for the day, but a new rivalry had been forged, one that would burn bright throughout the Mahabharata. Duryodhana's jealousy of the Pandavas grew with each passing year. Their popularity and virtue, especially after the tournament, only deepened his resentment. Together with his cunning uncle, Shakuni, Duryodhana hatched a sinister plan to rid himself of his cousins once and for all. They were simple yet cruel. Build a palace out of lac, a highly flammable material, and invite the Pandavas and their mother Kunti to live there as a gesture of royal favor. King Dhritarashtra, under the pretense of honoring the Pandavas, offered them the new palace in the distant town of Varnavata. Though suspicious, the Pandavas accepted, aware that refusing their uncle's apparent generosity could be seen as disrespect. They set out for Varnavata, accompanied by their devoted mother, Kunti, and welcomed by the people with music and celebration. As the family settled into the ornate but treacherous palace, Vidura, the wise minister and their secret well-wisher, warned Yudhishthira through coded language about the danger that lay ahead. Yudhishthira, perceptive and cautious, instructed his brothers to be vigilant. Over the next few days, Bhima secretly dug a tunnel from their chambers to the forest, aided by a miner sent by Vidura. The fateful night arrived when Purochana, the architect loyal to Duryodhana, set fire to the palace, believing the Pandavas and Kunti asleep inside. Flames engulfed the beautiful structure, lighting up the night sky. The townspeople watched in horror, certain that the beloved princes and their mother had perished. However, the Pandavas, guided by Vidura's wisdom and Bhima's strength, escaped through the secret tunnel into the darkness of the forest. To ensure no pursuit, they left behind the bodies of a Nishada woman and her sons, whose presence in the palace confused their enemies into believing the Pandavas had truly died. Far from the palace and their enemies, the Pandavas paused to mourn the treachery they had survived. Though alive, they knew they could trust no one and must remain in hiding. Their hearts were heavy with the knowledge that their own kin had tried to destroy them, but their spirits remained unbroken. The House of Lac episode was more than just an escape. It was the true beginning of the Pandavas' long exile and struggle for justice. It showed their resourcefulness, the loyalty of true friends, and the depth of treachery in the heart of Hastinapura. From the ashes of the burning palace, the legend of the Pandavas grew stronger. Their resolve forged by fire and betrayal, with the world believing them dead, the Pandavas and Kunti found themselves wandering deep forests, far from the luxury of royal life. Survival demanded constant vigilance, as wild animals and lurking enemies posed dangers at every step. Yet, in exile, the Pandavas discovered unexpected lessons and spiritual growth that would shape their destinies. Their journey led them from village to hermitage, always in disguise to avoid recognition. The brothers adopted the dress and habits of wandering Brahmins, blending into crowds and gathering wisdom from the sages they encountered. Kunti, ever devoted, comforted her sons and kept their spirits high, reminding them of Dharma and resilience. In their wanderings, the Pandavas visited the hermitage of sages, learning stories of past heroes and receiving blessings. The ascetic life tested them, especially Bhima, whose appetite was legendary. Yet, he channeled his strength to protect his family from beasts and bandits. Arjuna practiced his archery even in the woods, mastering his craft with dedication, while Nakula and Sahadeva became adept at gathering food and medicinal herbs. Their days were not without hardship. Hunger, exhaustion, and the loss of their rightful place wore on their hearts. But these trials only strengthened their bond. Yudhishthira, steadfast and wise, kept the group united, ensuring that hope and justice never faded from their sight. One day, the Pandavas intervened to protect villagers from a fearsome Rakshasa named Hidimba. Bhima, confronting the demon in a fierce battle, emerged victorious and later married Hidimba's sister, Hidimbi. Their union produced a powerful son, Gatotkacha, whose loyalty would prove invaluable in the future. Even as outcasts, the Pandavas won the admiration and gratitude of the common people and sages alike. Their reputation grew not as exiled princes, but as protectors of the weak and upholders of Dharma. Word of their good deeds began to spread quietly, inspiring hope even among those who thought them lost. The forest exile marked a transformation for the Pandavas, from royal heirs to humble seekers, from pampered princes to wise ones. Each challenge refined their strengths and revealed new depths of character. Through the beauty and danger of the wilderness, the Pandavas found resilience and purpose, carrying the fire of justice within them. Awaiting the moment they could reclaim their birthright, news spread across kingdoms. King Drupada of Panchala would hold a grand swamvara for his daughter, Draupadi, famed for her intelligence and beauty. Suitors from far and wide gathered, including powerful kings and princes. Among the competitors was the mysterious Karna, whose skills rivaled any, and the Pandavas, still in exile, disguised as Brahmins. The contest was daunting. To win Draupadi's hand, a suitor must string a mighty bow and shoot an arrow through the eye of a revolving fish, seen only in its reflection. One by one, princes failed. Even Karna, bold and confident, strode forward, only to be stopped by Draupadi herself, who refused to marry anyone of uncertain lineage. Karna withdrew, his pride wounded. Then a humble Brahmin stepped forward. It was Arjuna in disguise. With effortless strength, he strung the bow and, aiming with supreme concentration, fired the arrow straight through the fish's eye. The crowd gasped. Draupadi, smiling, placed the victory garland around his neck. The Pandavas, still keeping their identities hidden, returned with Draupadi to their modest dwelling. When Kunti saw them arrive, she, thinking her sons brought alms, said, "Share whatever you have brought." Respecting her words, the brothers agreed that Draupadi would become the wife of all 5 Pandavas, a destiny prophesied since her birth. King Drupada was astonished, but soon accepted this divine will. The secret was revealed. The Brahmins were none other than the lost princes of Hastinapura. The news spread, and joy filled Panchala. Draupadi's marriage marked a turning point. She was destined to be at the heart of the Mahabharata, a queen whose courage and devotion would shape the fate of empires. In Draupadi, the Pandavas found a partner in suffering and triumph, a woman whose spirit would not break, Even as storms gathered, triumphant, the Pandavas returned to Hastinapura with Draupadi by their side. The kingdom erupted in joy. Its beloved princes, thought lost, were alive. The city celebrated with festivals, music, and prayers of gratitude. Elders like Bhishma, Vidura, and the blind king Dhritarashtra welcomed the Pandavas with open arms, deeply moved to see the family whole again. Yet, beneath the surface, tension simmered. Duryodhana and the Kauravas seethed with envy. The Pandavas' return, coupled with Draupadi's beauty and virtue, fanned the flames of rivalry. Dhritarashtra, torn between affection for his nephews and loyalty to his sons, struggled to maintain peace. The royal court gathered for a grand reception. Draupadi was introduced to the elders and formally accepted as the Pandavas' queen. She won the hearts of the people with her grace, Chistister, peeper as. But Duryodhana saw her as a symbol of everything he lacked. He plotted anew, determined to undermine his cousins. Wise Vidura and noble Bhishma counseled unity. To ease the growing strife, Dhritarashtra offered the Pandavas a share of the kingdom, hoping to appease both sides. The division was announced. The Kauravas would keep Hastinapura, while the Pandavas were given the barren land of Khandavaprastha. Though the land seemed inhospitable, the Pandavas accepted with humility and set off to build a new home, their spirits undaunted. Krishna, their trusted friend and ally, visited, assuring them that fate favored those who acted with righteousness. Draupadi, adapting quickly, became the heart of the new royal family, lending her wisdom and courage as they began this fresh chapter. The return to Hastinapura was bittersweet, a time of joy, reunion, and new beginnings, but also of lingering shadows. The seeds of envy and conflict, though hidden, were already growing. The Pandavas, armed with virtue and Draupadi's support, prepared to transform their barren land into a city of legends. With the kingdom divided, the Pandavas set forth for their new domain, Khandavaprastha, a wasteland marked by thorny bushes and wild beasts. Warting, far from feeling defeated, the brothers saw this as a chance to create something extraordinary from nothing. Draupadi, undeterred by hardship, offered unwavering support, tending to the needs of the family and rallying the people. As the Pandavas surveyed the barren land, Krishna arrived, bringing hope and guidance. He reminded them that every challenge is an opportunity for greatness. With divine blessings, the work began. Under Arjuna's leadership, forests were cleared, wells dug, and roads laid. Yudhishthira set the laws and ensured justice. Bhima organized labor and defended against marauders. Nakula and Sahadeva tended to cattle and agriculture. The transformation was miraculous. With Krishna's aid, the divine architect Vishwakarma built Indraprastha, a city of shining palaces, lush gardens, and sparkling lakes. The capital soon attracted people from distant lands, artists and merchants, scholars and warriors, all drawn to the Pandavas' justice and Draupadi's kindness. Indraprastha became a symbol of resilience and renewal. Yudhishthira ruled with fairness, ensuring every subject felt valued. The brothers grew in strength and wisdom, but always kept humility at heart. Draupadi, as queen, presided over the royal household with wisdom and grace. The city's splendor reached every corner of Bharat. Kings came to pay their respects, alliances were forged, and prosperity blossomed. Yet, as news of Indraprastha's glory spread, Duryodhana's envy deepened. The Kaurava prince, unable to match the Pandavas' success, began to plot anew, determined to bring them down. For now, the Pandavas enjoyed a golden era, peace, prosperity, and unity. They remembered the hardships of exile and betrayal, and cherished the bonds that held them together. The splitting of the kingdom, meant to divide, instead became a testament to their resilience. Indraprastha shone like a jewel, born from the dust, built by faith, and destined for history. But as ever in the Mahabharata, fortune's wheel kept turning, and new challenges lay ahead. Indraprastha flourished under the Pandavas' rule, earning respect and admiration across kingdoms. Yet, as his subjects prospered, Yudhishthira aspired to unite the realm in peace and righteousness. Guided by Krishna's wisdom, he resolved to perform the Rajasuya Yajna, a royal sacrifice marking his authority as emperor over all Bharat. Preparations for the Yajna were immense. The brothers set forth to conquer neighboring kingdoms, forging alliances and ensuring every king acknowledged Yudhishthira's sovereignty. Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva each journeyed in different directions, defeating proud rulers and bringing them under the Pandava banner. The wealth, tribute, and gifts poured into Indraprastha, and soon the city shone brighter than ever before. The day of the Rajasuya dawned. The sacred fire blazed in the heart of a vast hall, where royalty from across the land gathered, kings, sages, warriors, and elders. The ritual was performed with grandeur and precision. Krishna, as the most honored guest, was invited to receive the highest seat despite the presence of many mighty kings. This act was both wise and Shishupala, king of Chedi and a sworn enemy of Krishna, loudly objected, mocking and insulting Krishna in the assembly. Yudhishthira hesitated, but Krishna calmly endured Shishupala's 100 insults, as he had promised Shishupala's mother years before. But when the insults exceeded all bounds, Krishna invoked his divine power and, with a single discus, ended Shishupala's life. The whole fell silent, some in awe, others in fear. The Rajasuya continued, the sacrifices completed, and Yudhishthira was acclaimed as emperor. Yet not all hearts were happy. Duryodhana, who had attended with his brothers, wandered through Indraprastha's crystal halls and lush gardens. Unable to hide his envy, he marveled at the wonders of the palace, its illusory floors and magical ponds. In his jealousy, he fell into a pool, and Draupadi, witnessing his mishap, laughed, a moment that Duryodhana would never forgive. The Rajasuya Yajna marked the zenith of the Pandavas' fortunes. But in its shadows, old rivalries and fresh wounds began to fester. The seeds of conflict, watered by pride and resentment, were ready to sprout anew. Duryodhana's humiliation at Indraprastha burned within him like an unquenchable fire. Consumed by envy, he returned to Hastinapura and conspired with his cunning uncle, Shakuni. Their plan to strip the Pandavas of their fortune and pride, not by force, but by guile. An invitation arrived at Indraprastha, summoning the Pandavas to a royal game of dice. Yudhishthira, bound by duty to honor the call, knew well the dangers, for Shakuni's reputation as a master of deceit was legendary. Yet, unable to refuse, the Pandavas journeyed to Hastinapura. In the royal assembly hall, elders and courtiers gathered to watch. Shakuni, representing Duryodhana, played against Yudhishthira. At first, the stakes were modest, but as the game progressed, Shakuni's loaded dice turned luck against Yudhishthira again and again. Driven by pride, shame, and the hope of regaining his losses, Yudhishthira gambled away his wealth, his kingdom, his brothers, and even himself. But the final, most painful wager remained: Draupadi. Yudhishthira, distraught and desperate, staked her as his last hope. Shakuni's dice rolled victory for Duryodhana. Draupadi, queen and beloved wife, was lost. The Pandavas, now powerless, were forced to watch as Duryodhana and his brothers claimed victory. The assembly held its breath, horrified by the outcome, but too afraid to speak. Even elders like Bhishma and Vidura felt powerless before the relentless tide of fate. Draupadi was summoned, humiliated by being won and lost. Like a mere object, her cries for justice echoed through the hall. But Duryodhana, intoxicated by triumph, would not be denied. Shakuni and Karna mocked her. Dushasana dragged her before the assembly. The dice game, meant to be a contest of chance, had become a crucible of suffering, testing the souls of all who witnessed it. With each roll, the Mahabharata's tragedy deepened, and the stage was set for events that would change history forever. Draupadi, queen of Indraprastha, stood alone before the assembly, her dignity threatened by the very men sworn to protect her. Dushasana, drunk with victory, tried to disrobe her in front of the court, while Duryodhana mocked her mercilessly. Karna, his words sharp as arrows, insulted her honor. Many elders lowered their heads in shame, unable to stop the outrage, while Yudhishthira and his brothers, bound by the rules of the game, sat helpless. But Draupadi's spirit would not be broken. With tearful eyes yet unbowed resolve, she called upon the gods for protection. At that moment, the divine Krishna intervened. As Dushasana tugged at her sari, the cloth became endless. No matter how much he pulled, Draupadi remained covered. The court watched in awe and disbelief, recognizing the miraculous intervention. Dushasana, exhausted, fell to the ground. Draupadi's prayers and Krishna's grace turned her humiliation into a testament of faith and justice. Yet, the damage was done. Draupadi's voice thundered with righteous anger as she demanded answers from the elders. "Where is Dharma in this hall?" she cried. Her questions pierced the silence and haunted every heart present. Vidura and Bhishma were speechless, bound by conflicting duties and torn by guilt. In the end, Dhritarashtra, realizing the gravity of the offense and fearing Krishna's wrath, apologized to Draupadi and offered her boons. She asked only for her husband's freedom and their lost kingdom. Her generosity astounded all. She sought no personal revenge, only justice for her family. Dhritarashtra granted her wish, and the Pandavas were restored to their freedom and wealth. But Duryodhana, ever cunning, lured Yudhishthira into a second game of dice. Once again, Yudhishthira lost, and the Pandavas were exiled to the forest for 12 years, with a 13th year to be spent in disguise. Draupadi's ordeal left scars on every soul in the hall and became the catalyst for vengeance, transformation, and the coming. Her courage inspired the Pandavas and became a beacon for the oppressed. Stripped of their kingdom and honor by the deceitful game of dice, the Pandavas and Draupadi embarked upon a harsh exile into the forest. The once glorious royal family now roamed as wanderers, far from Indraprastha's palaces and comforts. Their 12 years in the wild tested every facet of their character and forged them into legends. Their journey was marked by challenges both physical and emotional. Dense forests and harsh climates became their new home. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and wild beasts lurked at every turn. Yet, united by a sense of duty and Draupadi's unwavering resilience, the Pandavas refused to be broken. Yudhishthira bore his suffering with stoic grace, clinging to the principles of Dharma. Bhima's strength protected his family, while Arjuna continued to hone his martial skills in preparation for future confrontations. Nakula and Sahadeva proved invaluable, gathering fruits, herbs, and water, and tending to their mother Kunti and Draupadi. During their exile, the Pandavas met many sages and saints. They learned stories of old, gained wisdom, and performed sacred rituals. The forest was not just a place of hardship, but also a university of the soul. Draupadi, though a queen forced to endure hardship, never faltered. Her courage and patience inspired all. At times, the Pandavas' valor drew attention from demons and kings alike. Bhima defeated monstrous Rakshasas and rescued villagers, earning respect as a protector. Arjuna, seeking divine weapons, traveled to the Himalayas, performing penance until Indra granted him celestial arms. Draupadi faced her own tormentors. Jayadratha, a wicked king, tried to abduct her, but Hima and Arjuna pursued and rescued her, punishing the villain. Even in suffering, the Pandavas upheld their dignity and justice. They supported the helpless, counseled villagers, and respected the wisdom of rishis. Word of their conduct traveled far, spreading hope and faith that righteousness would one day prevail. The years of exile became a crucible, forging the Pandavas and Draupadi into true heroes, not just of war, but of endurance, compassion, and unwavering faith. The forest trials gave them new strength, unbreakable bonds, and the resolve to reclaim their destiny. Their suffering became the root of their future glory, as the wheels of fate spun inexorably toward the great war of Kurukshetra. As their exile neared its end, the Pandavas faced one of their most mysterious and transformative challenges. While searching for water during a scorching day, the brothers, exhausted and thirsty, stumbled upon a serene lake in the heart of the forest. Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva, and Arjuna rushed ahead to drink, but each fell lifeless as soon as they touched the water, ignoring the warning of a mysterious voice. Yudhishthira, arriving last, found his brothers' bodies beside the lake. Overcome by grief and confusion, he heard the same voice, a yaksha, the spirit guardian of the lake. The yaksha warned that no one could drink unless his riddles were answered. But Yudhishthira, known for his wisdom and patience, respectfully agreed. The yaksha posed a series of profound questions, testing his understanding of Dharma, fate, morality, and the nature of life. What is the greatest wonder? What is the true path? What is faster than the wind? Yudhishthira answered each with insight. The greatest wonder is that people die every day, yet live as if immortal. The true path is found by reflection, study, and the teachings of good people, and mind is faster than the wind. Impressed by Yudhishthira's humility, honesty, and wisdom, the yaksha revealed his true form, Dharma, Yudhishthira's celestial father. Puk. He restored the brothers to life, blessing them for their integrity and respect for Dharma. This episode was a turning point for the Pandavas. They were reminded that strength alone is not enough. Wisdom, humility, and the courage to do what is right matter even more. The brothers, reunited and grateful, moved forward, hearts renewed and spirits strengthened for the final years of exile. The story of the yaksha's questions became legendary, a testament to Yudhishthira's commitment to righteousness and the vital importance of character over power. After 12 years in the wilderness, the Pandavas faced their final trial, a year living in disguise, unrecognized, or they would be exiled again. Choosing the court of King Virata in Matsya, they took on new identities, blending into the royal household as humble servants. Yudhishthira became Kanka, a courtier skilled in dice and storytelling, advising the king with wisdom. Bhima, taking the name Vallabha, served as the palace cook, his immense strength hidden behind a humble apron. Arjuna, cursed by Urvashi to live as a eunuch for 1 year, assumed the identity of Brihanala, teaching dance and music to the princess Uttara. Nakula tended the king's horses as Granthika, while Sahadeva, called Tantripala, cared for the cattle. Draupadi, as Sairandri, became the queen's maid, graceful and patient even amid hardships. Life at Virata's court was not without peril. Draupadi faced harassment from Kichaka, the powerful commander, but Bhima, risking their secret, defended her. The brothers endured humiliation, insults, and the constant threat of discovery, but their love and unity carried them through. The year passed with tense caution. When the Kauravas invaded Matsya, hoping to force the Pandavas out of hiding, Arjuna revealed his true self, leading the king's army to a stunning victory. The world learned the Pandavas had survived their trials. Their time in disguise was more than a test of patience. It was a testament to adaptability, humility, and the power of inner strength. They experienced the lives of commoners, witnessed the struggles of the ordinary, and emerged wiser, ready to reclaim their destiny. The 13th year ended with hope restored. The Pandavas sent word to Hastinapura. Their exile was complete, and they were returning not as victims, but as heroes transformed by adversity, carrying the wisdom of hardship into the challenges ahead. Though the Pandavas lived in disguise at King Virata's court, danger constantly shadowed them. None more perilous than Kichaka, the mighty commander-in-chief and Queen Sudeshna's powerful brother. Known for his strength and arrogance, Kichaka became infatuated with Draupadi, who, as Sairandri, served the queen. His advances grew more aggressive, yet Draupadi could do little without exposing her true identity or endangering her family. One evening, Kichaka accosted Draupadi in the palace hall. She fled, but he caught and humiliated her before the royal assembly, striking fear into everyone who saw his unchecked power. Draupadi, weeping with rage, went to Bhima that night, revealing the torment she faced and begging for justice. Bhima, his fury ignited, promised vengeance. That night, following Draupadi's plan, she lured Kichaka into the dance hall, pretending to agree to his advances. In the darkness, Kichaka found not Draupadi, but Bhima waiting for him. A fierce struggle erupted. Bhima's strength was unmatched. He seized Kichaka and crushed his bones, ending the tormentor's life. The palace awoke to Kichaka's mangled body. Panic swept through Virata's court, for Kichaka's relatives, suspecting Draupadi, accused her of murder and sought her death. The Pandavas, still maintaining their disguises, intervened subtly to protect her. Kichaka's death became legendary, whispered about across the kingdom. It signaled to the Pandavas' enemies that heroes still walked the land, even if in shadow. Draupadi's ordeal and Bhima's fierce love reminded the world that virtue, though tested, would never be defeated by tyranny. The danger passed, but the lessons lingered. For the Pandavas, the cost of secrecy grew ever heavier, but their resolve to reclaim justice only deepened. Their time in exile was almost over, and soon the world would know the truth. The 13th year of exile was coming to a close. The Kauravas, suspicious that the Pandavas might be hiding in Matsya, launched an attack on King Virata's kingdom, hoping to flush them out and force another round of exile. The Matsya army was away, leaving the palace vulnerable. Only Uttara, the young prince, remained terrified but eager to defend his home. Unknown to all, Arjuna, still disguised as Brihanala, offered to be Uttara's charioteer. As the Kaurava army approached, Arjuna revealed his true identity, astonishing the prince. With a mighty roar, Arjuna took up his divine weapons, retrieved from the Shami tree where they were hidden, and prepared for battle. Arjuna's ending forwards. Arjuna's prowess on the battlefield was unmatched. With a single chariot and Uttara as his driver, he faced the combined forces of the Kauravas and their allies. Showers of arrows rained down, but Arjuna repelled them with skill and divine weapons. Great warriors like Drona, Karna, Bhishma, and Duryodhana faced him but could not prevail. Meanwhile, in the palace, the rest of the Pandavas, their disguises no longer needed, revealed themselves to King Virata and his court. The revelation stunned all. These humble servants were the legendary Pandavas. The king was overjoyed, apologizing for any suffering they endured while in disguise, and offering his daughter, Uttara, in marriage to Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu. The Pandavas' victory and return was celebrated throughout Matsya and beyond. Their 13 years of hardship and humility were over. The Kauravas' attempt to extend the exile had failed, and the time had come to reclaim their place in Hastinapura. 2. The end of exile marked a new beginning. The Pandavas were no longer fugitives, but warriors transformed by adversity, wiser, stronger, and more united than ever. The call for justice would soon resound through Bharat. As the greatest conflict of the age drew near, with their exile complete, the Pandavas sent word to Hastinapura, demanding the return of their kingdom as promised. Hopeful for a peaceful solution, they appointed Krishna as their envoy, trusting in his wisdom and divine presence. Krishna set out for Hastinapura, determined to secure justice and avoid the bloodshed that war would bring. In the Kaurava court, Krishna addressed Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, Drona, and the assembled elders. He offered a generous proposal: return only 5 villages to the Pandavas. Let there be peace in the land. The elders, moved by Krishna's plea, urged Duryodhana to accept, but Duryodhana's pride and envy were unyielding. He scoffed at the suggestion, declaring he would not give up even as much land as can be covered by the point of a needle. Krishna made one final appeal, warning of the catastrophic war that would ensue. Yet Duryodhana and his brothers remained obstinate, attempting even to capture Krishna by force. In response, Krishna revealed his divine form, dazzling the court with his glory and reminding all present of the consequences of unrighteousness. The peace talks failed. The Pandavas, though heartbroken, had no choice but to prepare for war. Allies were summoned, armies assembled, and the world stood divided. Bhishma and Drona were bound by their oaths to fight for Hastinapura, though their hearts ached for peace. Krishna returned to the Pandavas, reporting the futility of negotiation. War is inevitable, he said, but justice will prevail. The brothers, once exiled and humiliated, now stood ready to fight for their birthright, not out of vengeance, but for Dharma and the future of their people. As drums of war thundered across the land, mothers wept, sages prayed, and warriors sharpened their swords. The great Kurukshetra War, destined to reshape the world, loomed on the horizon, its flames kindled by pride, fate, and the failure of peace. The failure of peace cast a long shadow over the land. With war now inevitable, both the Pandavas and Kauravas began assembling their mighty armies. Hastinapura and Indraprastha buzzed with the clamor of marching feet, neighing horses, and the clash of weaponry being forged. Messengers rode across kingdoms, inviting kings, allies, and legendary warriors to take sides in this epoch-defining conflict. Krishna visited both camps, offering a choice to Arjuna and Duryodhana. Duryodhana, arriving first, chose Krishna's vast Narayani Sena, an army of countless warriors. Arjuna, arriving later but showing greater humility, chose Krishna himself as his charioteer, knowing the divine presence would matter more than numbers. Thus, alliances began to take shape, each side counting among its ranks the bravest warriors of the age. The Pandavas gained the support of Draupadi, King Virata, and the powerful Krishna. The Kauravas rallied Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, Karna, and the formidable Shakuni, as well as vast legions from across Bharat. Brothers bid farewell to families, mothers wept, and the wise uttered warnings. The sky itself seemed to darken in anticipation. In Indraprastha, the Pandavas made offerings to the gods and paid respects to their elders. Draupadi, torn by dread and hope, steeled herself for what was to come. Each brother readied himself. Yudhishthira prepared with solemn prayers. Bhima trained with his mace. Arjuna inspected his divine weapons. Nakula and Sahadeva readied their horses and chariots. On the other side, Duryodhana brimmed with pride, determined to crush his cousins. So Bhishma, appointed commander of the Kaurava army, accepted the role with a heavy heart, knowing his loyalty to the throne of Hastinapura bound him against the Pandavas he loved. As the sun set, the great plain of Kurukshetra echoed with the sounds of encampment. Flags fluttered, warriors trained, and spies gathered intelligence. The world paused, holding its breath. The fate of generations was about to be decided. The preparations for war were not just about assembling armies, but about readiness of spirit, testing loyalty, courage, and the righteousness of every decision. Destiny loomed large, and soon the ground would tremble beneath the greatest battle ever fought. As the sun rose on the first day of the Great War, the armies of the Pandavas and Kauravas faced each other across the vast plains of Kurukshetra. The air trembled with the sound of conches and war drums. Chariots lined up in gleaming rows, flags snapping in the wind, archers ready, swordsmen tense. Arjuna, the greatest warrior of the Pandavas, rode to the center of the field, Krishna as his charioteer. As Arjuna surveyed the enemy lines, his gaze fell upon friends, elders, and teachers, Bhishma, Drona, and many beloved faces. Overwhelmed with sorrow and doubt, he put down his bow, unable to fight against those he respected and loved. Sensing Arjuna's anguish, Krishna spoke words of timeless wisdom. In the midst of the roaring armies, he taught Arjuna the essence of life, duty, and the soul. Do your duty without attachment, Krishna counseled, for the soul is eternal. Death is but a change of clothes. True action is performed with righteousness, without desire for reward. Arjuna's fears melted as Krishna revealed his divine form, a vision of infinite glory, cosmic and awesome. Arjuna beheld Krishna as the source of all creation and destruction, the upholder of Dharma and the ultimate refuge. The teachings Krishna delivered on that battlefield became the Bhagavad Gita, a song of divine guidance for all ages. Strengthened by Krishna's wisdom, Arjuna found clarity and resolve. He picked up his bow and signaled to his brothers that he was ready. The two armies stood silent, waiting for the signal to begin. With Krishna's blessing, Arjuna lifted his conch shell, blowing a thunderous note that echoed across Kurukshetra. The Mahabharata's greatest war was about to erupt, but its greatest truth had already been revealed. The Gita's message transcended war. It spoke of duty, detachment, faith, and the immortal soul. A beacon for every seeker in the darkest of times, the signal to commence war echoed across Kurukshetra as conches and drums shattered the silence. Armies surged forward, banners waving, chariots thundering, and arrows darkening the sky. The Mahabharata's legendary battle had begun, a clash that would decide the fate of an age. The opening days saw epic displays of valor. Bhishma, the grandsire, led the Kaurava forces with unmatched prowess, his silver hair flashing amid the chaos as he fought with skill and compassion, careful not to slay the Pandavas outright. The Pandavas countered with their own heroes. Bhima's mighty mace shattered chariots. Arjuna's arrows rained down like fire, and Yudhishthira kept his army's spirits high. Each day brought new challenges. Fierce duels erupted, Bhima versus Duryodhana, Satyaki versus Kritavarma, and Drona, the master, facing off against his beloved pupils. The ground shook with the force of battle. Warriors fell, elephants trampled, and the air was thick with dust and cries. Draupadi prayed daily, her heart torn between hope and fear. Krishna, though refusing to take up arms, steered Arjuna's chariot with divine insight, saving him from certain death and guiding his arrows to their mark. Amid the fighting, moments of humanity glimmered, old friends exchanging words before combat, enemies pausing to honor the fallen, and the tragic knowledge that both sides were kin. The war was more than a contest of arms. It was a trial of Dharma, loyalty, and fate. As the days passed, the battlefield grew soaked with sorrow and glory. The Pandavas' resolve was tested by loss and doubt, but Krishna's presence and the memory of all they'd endured kept them pressing on. The first phase of the Kurukshetra War proved that neither side would yield easily. The world watched in awe and terror as the fate of Bharat hung in the balance, and legends were born with every passing hour. As the war raged on, the Pandavas soon realized that as long as Bhishma led the Kaurava army, their victory was impossible. The grand old patriarch, bound by his vow to protect Hastinapura, fought with unmatched skill and compassion, but his presence on the battlefield was invincible. He refused to kill the Pandavas, yet he was unstoppable in defense of the Kauravas. Desperate, the Pandavas sought Krishna's counsel. Krishna reminded them of Bhishma's secret. He would not fight a woman or someone who was once a woman. This pointed them to Shikandi, Draupadi's child, born female and transformed into a man, whom Bhishma recognized as Amba reincarnated, a soul seeking vengeance against him. On the 10th day of battle, Arjuna, shielded by Shikandi, led the charge against Bhishma. Shikandi stood at the forefront, and Bhishma, true to his word, refused to raise his weapons against him. Arjuna, with a heavy heart, unleashed a storm of arrows from behind Shikandi, piercing Bhishma again and again. Bhishma smiled, blessing Arjuna, and accepted his fate with dignity. Soon the grandsire fell, his body forming a bed of arrows, but his spirit unbroken. The battle paused as the world honored the fallen patriarch. Lying on his bed of arrows, Bhishma asked for water. Arjuna shot an arrow into the earth, releasing a spring that quenched his thirst. Surrounded by the Pandavas, Kauravas, and sages, Bhishma imparted his final wisdom, teaching the principles of Dharma, governance, and virtue to Yudhishthira. Bhishma, granted the boon of choosing his time of death, lingered on the battlefield, waiting for the auspicious moment. His fall marked the beginning of the end for the Kauravas. Their greatest shield was gone. For the Pandavas, it was a moment of sorrow and respect. The world mourned the loss of the noblest warrior, and the war moved inexorably toward its bloody climax. With Bhishma fallen, Dronacharya, teacher to both the Pandavas and Kauravas, became commander of the Kaurava army. Drona fought with ferocity and brilliance, wielding his weapons like a whirlwind. The Pandavas faced defeat after defeat, their morale shaken by the master's unyielding assault. Desperate to turn the tide, Krishna devised a painful but necessary plan. Drona's only weakness was his son, Ashwatthama, whom he loved more than life. Krishna suggested spreading the false news that Ashwatthama was dead. The Pandavas hesitated, but Yudhishthira, ever bound by truth, agreed for the greater good. On the battlefield, Bhima killed an elephant named Ashwatthama and loudly proclaimed, "Ashwatthama is dead!" Drona, stricken with dread, sought confirmation from Yudhishthira, whose words no one doubted. In anguish, Yudhishthira answered, "Ashwatthama is dead," adding softly, the elephant, words drowned by battle noise. Drona, broken by grief, laid down his arms and sat in meditation, ready to renounce the world. At that moment, Drishtadyumna, son of Drupada and born to slay Drona, seized the opportunity and beheaded the great teacher. The act shocked both armies. One of the world's greatest warriors and gurus had fallen, not in glorious combat, but by deception and sorrow. The battlefield stilled as soldiers mourned the loss of their revered master. Ashwathama, learning of his father's fate, swore vengeance and unleashed destruction upon the Pandavas' camp in the dark days to come. Drona's death was a turning point in the war, proof that even the greatest warriors could fall, and that the struggle for victory would demand immense sacrifice from all. With Bhishma and Drona gone, Karna, Duryodhana's loyal friend and a warrior of unmatched valor, became the Kaurava commander. Karna's presence on the battlefield was formidable. His arrows rained down upon the Pandavas like a storm, and his personal duel with Arjuna was anticipated by all. Yet Karna carried his own burdens. He had learned of his birthright, that he was Kunti's firstborn and the eldest Pandava, but refused to abandon Duryodhana. His loyalty was unwavering, even as fate conspired against him. Before battle, Kunti met him, pleading that he spare her sons, but Karna promised only not to kill any brother but Arjuna. The day of the great duel arrived. The armies paused, forming a ring around Arjuna and Karna. The duel was fierce. Arrows flew, chariots shattered, and the sky darkened with their fury. Krishna, Arjuna's charioteer, watched with unwavering focus. Fate struck at a crucial moment. Karna's chariot wheel became mired in the earth, a result of a curse from earlier in his life. As he struggled to free it, Karna pleaded for a pause, invoking the rules of war. Krishna reminded Arjuna of Karna's own past merciless acts and urged him to take the shot. With a heavy heart, Arjuna unleashed the fatal arrow. Karna fell, noble yet defeated, his honor and bravery never questioned. The Pandavas, especially Arjuna, grieved for the fallen hero. Only then did Yudhishthira and his brothers learn the full truth. That Karna was their brother, a secret kept too long. Karna's death marked the end of the Kauravas' hopes. Duryodhana's spirit broke, and the war's tide turned definitively in favor of the Pandavas. The battlefield mourned the passing of one of its brightest stars, a warrior caught between destiny, loyalty, and the cruel hand of fate. The great war's end was near. The battlefield was strewn with the bodies of heroes and the air heavy with grief. Only a handful of Kaurava warriors remained. Duryodhana, once proud and commanding, now wandered the blood-soaked fields alone, heartbroken and desperate. His closest allies, Bhishma, Drona, Karna, had all fallen. Rage and loss consumed him, refusing to surrender. Duryodhana fled to a lake, hiding underwater to escape pursuit. The Pandavas learned of his whereabouts and challenged him to emerge and face his fate. Shamed by their taunts and his own wounded pride, Duryodhana rose from the water, accepting a final challenge, a duel with Bhima, the Pandavas' mighty second brother. A ring was formed on the battlefield as the sun set, painting the sky red. Warriors from both sides watched in tense silence as Bhima and Duryodhana faced each other, their bodies battered, but their spirits unbroken. They fought with maces circling each other, striking blow for blow. The earth trembled under their might. Duryodhana was a master of mace combat, and for a time the fight seemed even. But Bhima, remembering Draupadi's humiliation and all the suffering Duryodhana had wrought, fought with fury. At Krishna's subtle gesture, Bhima struck Duryodhana below the waist, against the code of war, but in answer to Duryodhana's own countless betrayals. With a thunderous blow, Bhima shattered Duryodhana's thigh, and the Kaurava prince crashed to the ground, mortally wounded. Duryodhana cursed his enemies, and even as he lay dying, his spirit remained proud, refusing to beg for mercy. The remaining Kaurava warriors, especially Ashwatthama, wept for their leader and vowed vengeance. Duryodhana's fall marked the end of the Kaurava line. The war was over, but the price was almost unbearable. For the Pandavas, victory was mingled with sorrow. A kingdom won, but at the cost of family, friends, and the soul of Bharat. The war's horrors did not end with Duryodhana's fall. Ashwatthama, Drona's son, burned with rage and grief for his slain father and friend. As Duryodhana lay dying, Ashwatthama vowed to avenge the Kauravas. Together with Kritavarma and Kripa, he planned a desperate act, a midnight attack on the sleeping Pandava camp. Under cover of darkness, Ashwatthama crept into the camp. Consumed by fury and guided by dark omens, he unleashed his wrath upon the unsuspecting warriors. Swords flashed, and screams pierced the night. Ashwatthama spared none. Sons of the Pandavas, Draupadi's children, and the last survivors of their army fell before his vengeful hand. The carnage was relentless. Using a powerful celestial weapon, Ashwatthama unleashed destruction, leaving the camp strewn with bodies. Only the 5 Pandavas and a few others survived, saved by their absence that night. As dawn broke, Draupadi awoke to the heartbreaking sight of her dead sons. Her wails shook the heavens. The Pandavas, shattered and enraged, pursued Ashwatthama. Cornered, he invoked the Brahmastra, the most terrible of divine weapons, aiming to destroy his foes. Krishna intervened, commanding Arjuna to counter it, preventing catastrophe. Caught and brought before Draupadi, Ashwatthama expected death. But Draupadi, her heart heavy with loss, asked only for justice, not vengeance. Krishna decreed that Ashwatthama's divine jewel be taken, and he be cursed to wander the earth in agony, never finding peace. A punishment worse than death. Ashwatthama's revenge became a grim reminder of war's endless suffering. The victory tasted bitter for the Pandavas, and the world wept for the innocents lost in the war's shadow. The dust of Kurukshetra finally settled, revealing a land forever scarred by war. The Pandavas, victorious but broken, walked through the remains of the battlefield, fathers mourning sons, mothers searching for their lost children, and widows filling the air with laments. Victory felt hollow. Yudhishthira, crowned king of Hastinapura, was tormented by guilt over the vast destruction and loss. He blamed himself for the deaths of kinsmen and innocents, and his heart was heavy with questions about the cost of Dharma. The city, once vibrant, mourned as thousands of pyres burned by the Ganges, and the emptiness of triumph pressed on every soul. Gandhari, mother of the Kauravas, arrived on the field to perform the last rites for her sons. Her grief knew no bounds. In her sorrow and anger, she cursed Krishna, blaming him for not preventing the slaughter. "May your own people perish as mine have, O Krishna," she intoned. Krishna, accepting her curse, explained that destiny and the choices of men had brought this about. In the palace, the Pandavas sought solace and forgiveness from Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. The blind king, consumed by loss, forgave them, though his pain would never fade. Vidura and the wise sages counseled the brothers, reminding them of the cyclical nature of time and the heavy burden of leadership. Yudhishthira hesitated to accept the throne, yearning instead for renunciation. Only Krishna's wisdom and the pleas of his family persuaded him to fulfill his duty as king. The Pandavas performed rites for the dead, honoring friend and foe alike, and strove to heal the kingdom's wounds. The aftermath of war was not just about loss, but about seeking reconciliation and building anew. The survivors faced the task of rebuilding lives and a kingdom. Yudhishthira ruled with justice, but the shadow of Kurukshetra lingered long, a warning to all generations of the price of pride and hatred. After the ashes of war settled, Yudhishthira ascended the throne of Hastinapura. The palace was grand, but the atmosphere was subdued, haunted by memories of those lost. Yudhishthira's coronation was attended by the few remaining elders, sages, and citizens who survived the war. Though crowned in glory, he felt no joy, only a profound sense of duty and sorrow. Determined to rule justly, Yudhishthira devoted himself to the welfare of his people. He held daily assemblies, ensuring justice was served, wrongs were righted, and that even the most humble voices were heard. The treasury was open to aid widows, orphans, and the poor. The Pandavas, too, took on new roles. Bhima protected the realm with his might. Arjuna oversaw security and foreign affairs. Nakula managed horses and cavalry, while Sahadeva cared for cattle and agriculture. Draupadi, her heart scarred but strong, became a source of compassion and wisdom in the palace, guiding women and families through grief. With Krishna's counsel, Yudhishthira organized a great horse sacrifice, Ashwamedha Yajna, to purify the land and symbolically unite the fractured kingdoms of Bharat. Kings who survived the war attended, pledging loyalty and peace. The city slowly began to heal. Festivals returned, and the land was replenished after years of drought and suffering. Yet, even in peace, the wounds of Kurukshetra lingered. The Pandavas frequently visited the elders, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Vidura, seeking advice and offering comfort. Yudhishthira often confided in Krishna, struggling with doubts about his actions and the burden of kingship. Krishna, ever the guide, reminded him that life's trials are meant to awaken wisdom, and that a good king serves with humility and compassion. Years passed. The children of Abhimanyu and others grew strong, carrying on the family line. But the past could not be entirely forgotten. In time, the elders chose to retire to the forest, seeking peace through meditation and prayer. Yudhishthira's rule became known as a golden age, prosperous, fair, and deeply ethical. His reputation spread across the world, and the stories of the Pandavas became legends told for generations. Yet, in his heart, Yudhishthira knew that life was impermanent, and the final chapter of their journey would soon call them away from worldly power toward a higher quest for truth. Years passed under Yudhishthira's wise rule. The kingdom flourished, and the wounds of war began to heal. Yet the Pandavas, having fulfilled their earthly duties, yearned for a higher purpose. News arrived that Krishna had departed from the world, and with his passing, the age of heroes was truly ending. Grief and a sense of completion filled the hearts of the Pandavas and Draupadi. Recognizing that their time as rulers was over, Yudhishthira and his brothers decided to renounce the throne. They entrusted the kingdom to Parikshit, Arjuna's grandson, ensuring the line of Bharat would continue. Together with Draupadi, the 5 brothers set out on their final journey, the Mahaprasthana, the great departure, leaving behind the crown, riches, and all worldly ties. Clad in simple robes, the Pandavas and Draupadi journeyed north, traversing forests, rivers, and mountains. They walked in silence, guided by a profound sense of peace. Along the way, one by one, Draupadi and each brother except Yudhishthira fell, succumbing to exhaustion and the weight of their human flaws. Yudhishthira alone continued, accompanied by a loyal dog, a divine form of Dharma, the god of righteousness. At the foot of Mount Meru, Yudhishthira was greeted by celestial beings who invited him to ascend to heaven in his mortal body as a reward for his unwavering virtue. He refused to enter heaven without his faithful dog, a final test of his compassion. When Dharma revealed his true form, Yudhishthira was praised for his loyalty, kindness, and commitment to truth. Yudhishthira entered heaven, where he was reunited with his brothers and Draupadi in their celestial forms. There, he discovered that even his former enemies had found peace after atoning for their actions. The journey of the Pandavas, from palace to battlefield to pilgrimage, ended not with conquest, but with the attainment of higher wisdom and eternal unity. The Mahaprasthana symbolizes the final renunciation, a journey every soul must take, leaving behind the world to find the ultimate truth. The Mahabharata ends not just with the ascent of heroes, but with the message they left for all of humanity. In heaven, Yudhishthira is welcomed by gods and ancestors, greeted as the just king who endured every trial without losing his virtue. There, reunited with his brothers, Draupadi, and even former foes, he realizes the unity that transcends enmity and division. The gods reveal the deeper meaning of all that transpired, that every soul must journey through joy and sorrow, battle and peace, loss and reunion, to finally arrive at understanding and compassion. The Pandavas' suffering and victories, their flaws and greatness, became an eternal lesson for those who seek meaning in life's struggles. Meanwhile, in the mortal world, the story of the Mahabharata is told and retold, its lessons echoing through centuries. It becomes a source of wisdom, a guide to Dharma, and a reminder that every action, no matter how small, shapes destiny. The legacy of Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita illuminates the hearts of all who strive for righteousness. Parikshit, the new king, governs with humility, honoring the values of his ancestors. The land of Bharat, though forever marked by war, begins to heal under his rule. Temples are built, and the stories of the Pandavas inspire poets, philosophers, and seekers across ages. The Mahabharata's legacy is not just in its battles or heroes, but in its questions about duty, justice, forgiveness, and the eternal quest for truth. Its cycles remind us that history repeats, but wisdom endures. The epic concludes with a prayer: "May all beings be happy. May all be free from disease. May all see good, and may none suffer misfortune." Thus ends the Mahabharata, an eternal river of stories and teachings, flowing endlessly into the hearts and minds of those who listen. Thank you, dear viewers, for accompanying me on this epic journey through the Mahabharata. From the birth of legendary princes to the cosmic lessons of the Bhagavad Gita, from the anguish of loss to the peace of final wisdom, we have witnessed a story that is not just history, but a guide for life itself. The Mahabharata reminds us that greatness is born not from victory, but from enduring hardship, learning humility, and choosing righteousness even in the face of suffering. The characters we met, heroes and villains alike, reflect the complexities within each of us. Their struggles and triumphs inspire us to ask deep questions about duty, compassion, and forgiveness. As you return to your world, may the lessons of the Pandavas, Draupadi, Krishna, and all the souls of this story continue to shine in your life, offering hope, courage, and perspective. If this tale moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into the world's greatest stories. What brings these legends to life? Until next time, stay curious, be kind, and let the spirit of the Mahabharata guide your heart. Thank you for watching.